Hey everybody, it's Johanna here with Orbital Astrology, and it is the weekly forecast for the week of February 12th. And yeah, the full moon last week, I wanted to the first thing I really want to talk about is like a kind of a recap of last week because we have that full moon in Leo. We also have this T square to Uranus, which I did mention kind of briefly, and I feel like maybe I should have spent more time on that T square because a lot of really unpredictable things happened last week, and a lot of them were kind of volatile. There were some major events here in my local area that would turn out to be pretty tragic. So for the most part, I talked a lot about you know Leo being creative and like being able to use this energy to like express yourself and step into your power and all, like happy, sort of supportive, empowering things, to say about the full moon. But I always want to sort of acknowledge the fact that no astrologer is going to predict something to the exact T. We're not psychics, but we can sort of give a spectrum of what possibly could happen on the positive side and the negative side. So I saw a lot of comments after I did the forecast last week of like, oh, this is going to be like a really exciting week. It sounds like a great week, and I was like, I felt bad afterwards because, especially for people in our local area, because there were some really sad things that happened last week. And, they were really disturbing too, as well. I mean, you can go and look online if you want to look at Albuquerque news, but a lot of the stuff was like really sticking with me, like as far as being just like I couldn't shake it. So sometimes that full moon energy, especially with Uranus, can be so volatile. And it's just so unexpected because Uranus is a planet of disruption and it can be really difficult to predict. It's probably one of the hardest planets to work with as far as expecting specific things or hoping to, manifest something constructive because you just don't know what you're going to get. So I hope you all had a good week last week. I hope that full moon was empowering for you in some aspects. But I did want to just sort of acknowledge that there was a lot of weird stuff that happened last week, with the Chinese spy balloon and like now shooting down all these unidentified objects over Alaska and Canada. And, and it's the astrology community. There was a huge drama that happened. So if you want to go on Astro Twitter or you want to go on YouTube or Facebook or anything and see what's going on, there's like this whole debate going on about the house systems and really kind of crazy stuff that's sort of popping up. And I did talk about Mercury being really active last week. So I talked about taking classes and learning something new. It was a great week to just like really dig deep into some psychological or spiritual stuff, which it was. There was a lot of stuff that came out that was very like psychological and unconscious, and like a lot of people's like shadow came out last week. So hopefully you were able to use the energies productively and learn something new and maybe like have a deeper spiritual connection or something really, either soul changing or some depth psychology came up for you where you're able to work with it. But, and hopefully like that sexy energy I was talking about was like a fun thing that happened and pleasurable for you last week. But I just wanted to acknowledge that sometimes in astrology, it's difficult. And I always want to be cognizant and tell people that, the possibilities of negative and positive things are always there. And, it's our job as far as being an astrology enthusiast to really just prepare for both options or, the good and the bad. And that we have the benefit of knowing that something may be coming up that needs to be looked at or addressed. And instead of being blindsided by it, we can be a little bit more informed or prepared for it. So anyway, on to this week. So if you are watching this live, hello. Today is the Psychic Fair at Resonant Essential. So if you're down there in Albuquerque saying hi to everybody at the center and getting readings, then great. I hope you all have an awesome time. If you are in the Orbit membership, hello. It's good to see you. There's going to be some exciting things coming up. So definitely stay tuned. You should be getting notifications now every time I upload stuff to the Orbit members area. So hopefully you've been getting those. If you're having issues, just let me know. But yeah, let's talk about this week. So you can start marking things in your Wandering Star Planner. You can start taking notes about what to look for this week and just sort of the general energies to prepare for. So We are in the final week of Aquarius season. This is it, right? So in the next week, we're going to be shifting into Pisces, and which is a kind of a big deal because we do that. This happens every year, right? The sun moves into a new sign after 30 days, but this year it's different because of the other planets that are in Aquarius or who are going to be moving into Aquarius because Saturn's been there for 2.5 years. So every time we have Aquarius season, every year, every time, the late February or early February, late January, we have Aquarius season. We get to experience it, all the themes that are associated with Aquarius. And of course, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. So a lot of the themes that happen during Aquarius season are Saturnian or they are associated with the planet Saturn. However, for the past 2.5 years, Saturn has been in its own sign of Aquarius. So it's like a hypercharged energy of Aquarius season or Saturn energy during Aquarius season. And so when we think about the sun moving through Aquarius every year, or year for the past 2.5 years, the sun is coming into a cazimi, which is a conjunction, right? The sun and Saturn are going to be at the very same degree of the zodiac in Aquarius. And so if you're part of the Orbit membership, there's a bunch of Kazemi exercises that we do, which is to sort of harness that auspicious moment where we can use both the benefit of Saturn and the benefit of the sun to either manifest something or to just work with the energies in an embodied way. So this year is the last year that the sun is going to make a conjunction with Saturn in Aquarius. That's it. There's no more Kazimis in Aquarius. Uh, or no more Saturn Kazimis in Aquarius for 30 years, right? Because it takes Saturn 30 years to go through, or 29-ish years to go through all of the signs of the zodiac. So it's a big deal, right? So we're kind of in this like final. This week coming up is going to feel very like yeah, just like wrapping up of loose ends, like sort of finality. Saturn in the ancient times, as far as astrology, was associated with death. Like, he was the timekeeper, he was the time lord who kept us all in check, who always made sure that we didn't get too big for our britches, that we knew that we had a limited amount of time on this earth. So that was very sobering, and that's why Saturn gets kind of a bad rap, because we don't like to be reminded of our own mortality. We like to think that everything's fine and we have plenty of time to do all the things we want to do, but Saturn really reminds us that it's not true. We're only here for a limited amount of time. So that energy is very present this week because we're finishing up Saturn's um, final weeks in Aquarius, and of course the Sun's actual final week before it moves into Pisces on the 18th. I think is the date. Yeah. So next Saturday we'll be moving into the Sun will be moving into Pisces. So we also have the planet. Well, not only is the Sun moving through the final degrees of Aquarius, so is Mercury. Mercury last week was having a conversation with Pluto, and I talked about a lot about what was going on with that. So we really did see sort of like a deep psychological conversation that happened last week. This week, since we have Mercury in Aquarius, it's left Pluto behind and gone into Saturn's sign. So the conversation is going to once again be kind of a finality, a kind of um, like a last hurrah type energy. Well, we need to have one more conversation before this ends because, yeah, like I said, it's not just the sun that's going to be making its final Kazemi or final aspect with Saturn and Aquarius. It's going to be Mercury as well, right? So because Mercury is going to keep going through all the signs every year, but Saturn takes such a long time to go through all of the signs that it only is going to be there for, it's going to be there for 2 years and then not again for 30 years. So we have this conversation happening with the Sun and Saturn, which is like a last hurrah, goodbye. What have I been taught by Saturn? The Sun really is, it represents our vitality, our sense of leadership, our higher purpose, all of that. But Saturn is the humbler of the zodiac. So how do we become a humble leader? How do we understand, our own limitations as humans without having this huge ego, right? Like Saturn kind of squashes the ego a little bit, and the Sun really is about the ego. The Sun wants to think it's really important and can handle all of the things that comes its way, and it can sort of take its um, ideals and purpose to whatever level it wants to. But Saturn is there to remind us that we're not always, we're not immortal. We're not these like the superheroes that we want to be sometimes. And so that's okay. I don't want people to feel like, oh gosh, like wah wah, I'm gonna be really depressed this week. I'm gonna be like, well, we are in the waning moon phase at the same time. We had that full moon last week, so that means we are moving into the balsamic moon, the last quarter moon. For the next 2.5 weeks until we hit that new moon in Pisces, we're on the downward trajectory. Like that energy is kind of like becoming more internal, reflective, adjusting, releasing, all of that, energy. It's very Saturnian, right? At the same time. Um, we're not in the phase of the moon where we go out with this big ideal where we have to like conquer the world. We are in the okay, I had my shot. Now I need to reassess, recollect myself. Um, and it's okay because that's what getting older is, right? It's part of maturing. It's realizing, looking back at your life and understanding what you've learned and how you're going to be moving towards the future. So, if you can think of it that way this week, when you have the Saturn Kazemi, which happens on um, Thursday the 16th, there's going to be some interesting stuff. Like Wednesday and Thursday this week are the big, like, kind of hot days, right? And of course, it's Valentine's Day this week. So, um, Wednesday and Thursday are kind of interesting. We have the Kazemi on the 16th, which is Thursday. So if you can sort of use that like humble, Saturnian, mature, um, sort of think of like a sage, right? Or like some wise guru or some authority figure that is giving you a lesson, and hopefully it's a gentle lesson. Sometimes Saturn can be harsh, depending on where Saturn is in your chart. If you are lucky enough to have an exalted Saturn or like a very strong Saturn that you're capable of dealing with very well, then that's awesome. This may not be such a rough week for you, um, but if you're feeling like, I don't know, on top of the world and suddenly you feel like you get knocked down a little bit, that's Saturn, right? That's Saturn just remember, keeping you in check. So, I mean, I don't want to dwell too much on this, but it really is important because Saturn is leaving Aquarius, right? Saturn's going into Pisces, and that's going to be a whole new shift in how Saturn functions. Right now, Saturn has the upper hand; it has its own energy and power in its domicile. But when it goes into Pisces in March, it's going to sort of be, it's going to be forced to figure out how to work with the Piscean energy, which is not Saturnian at all. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later as the year comes to these big ingresses of these outer planets. But this week, we're going to be looking at some more conversations with let's see, Mercury's coming into a square aspect with the nodes, right? We have the north node is at 6 degrees of Taurus. So before the nodes shift later this year, they're still hanging out at those like early degrees of fixed signs. So we have Taurus and we have Scorpio nodes still. So Mercury's coming into a conversation with the north node. That's happening on Wednesday the 15th, which also happens to be a big day for Venus coming into conjunction with Neptune. So that's like, I don't know, like also the moon is going to be crossing over the galactic center on that day. So I really think that Wednesday the 15th is like the day of the week that for big things to happen. If you're feeling like you're getting hits or like downloads or like psychic pings or whatever, that's the galactic center energy. So pay attention to things, write things down. I would, circle the Wednesday in your Wandering Star planner. Keep your planner with you that day, and just sort of like if you're feeling weird or you feel like you're getting signs or messages, or you feel like you're meeting people or something that seem important, or they're sort of out of the blue. But pay attention to what happens on that day because it really, I think, is going to be the big day um, of the week, followed by that Saturn Kazemi on Thursday, which is kind of interesting, right? Like you may have like a lot of big aha or feeling really good because that's the conjunction with Venus and Neptune. I mean, let's face it, like Venus is about pleasure, Venus is about love. I mean, this is all the Valentine's energy this week. Um, and Neptune is about fantasy. So, I mean, what's better than love and fantasy put together, right? It's going to be a very romantic Valentine's Day or relationship, whatever you're doing this week for either your self love or your partner's love or love in general or thinking about love is going to be enhanced by that Neptune. So, I think I talked about this not last week. Was it last week where I was like the sexy energy? Yeah, yesterday or last week I talked about I think it was Mars. Um Mars square or something. I forget. Oh, I'll have to look back again. But the energy this week is similar to that, but it's gonna be kind of like I don't know. Don't get too drunk on Valentine's Day because you may get pregnant and have a Scorpio in 9 months. I mean, that's the joke that's in the astrology community is like Scorpios. Valentine's Day is a conspiracy that Scorpios created to make more of them, right? Because 9 months after Valentine's Day is Scorpio season. So, that's kind of like it's a little dangerous, right? Having that like overemphasis on love and fantasy because it makes us put those rose-colored glasses on. Like we see our partner as like how we want them to be, or like suddenly they step into this hero role for us, or they step into this like bright and shiny magical thing, like, when you first fall in love, it's like that chemical or that hormone cocktail that sort of like makes you think that they're, whatever, more brighter, shinier, bigger, sexier, prettier, whatever than they are. Because when you start, once you're in a relationship for a long, long time, that Saturn kind of comes in, right? The reality sets in that nobody's perfect, everyone's got flaws. But that Neptune and Venus energy that week, the conjunction of those two is like zero. You can't see any of that. The reality gone. You're in some la la land, right? This fantasy of your partner or what you consider love to be. Like it could, be anything from your favorite like romance movie or novel or whatever, like sweeping romance, like Romeo and Juliet, or like Wuthering Heights or whatever you consider to be like your favorite. Oops, sorry, don't want to look at the trash can. Um, yeah, whatever sort of like gets you into that fantasy land. That's really the energy this week that it is very present. Dreaminess. That's what Neptune really is, like floating away on a dream. Um, which I kind of think of it like as an idealistic thing, like, oh, just sort of floating in this imaginary, lovely place, which is great, but don't get lost there, come back from that, which if you stay in that dreamy place, then that's dangerous, right? So, just be aware. I hope you all have a wonderful Valentine's Day and it's very fun. But there is that energy happening on the same day. We also have the square. Like I said, we have Mercury square, the North Node, which we'll kind of have another conversation about all the eclipses that happened last year. So if you think back to, November of last year when the eclipses were in Scorpio and Taurus, and we're gonna have a final one coming up, but those themes may be coming back. Just talking about those themes or thinking or messages from the North Node. The North Node, can be like a portal opening. Like I talk about the eclipses being like a portal, like a place where people come in and leave. And so it could be something similar to that. So yeah, once again, pay attention to who you talk to, what conversations are going on, who you meet that day, who's in your life, and then of course the galactic center, the moon across the galactic center can be a really magical thing. If you're in the orbit membership, then you have the dates for the astro flow activities, which that's one of the dates is the 15th. So um, let's see, Pluto, Sun, Moon. Okay, so let's shift to the anaretic degree, which is 29 degrees. So every single sign of the zodiac has 0 to 29 degrees. Technically, it's 30 degrees. Just doesn't start at 1. It starts at 0 and it goes to 29. So the 29th degree is called the anaretic degree, which is like this sort of like I already talked about how this week feels like a finality or a last hurrah, or like there's a lot of tension as far as that anaretic degree. The 29th degree means it's like on the cusp, right? It's on the verge of becoming something new. It's done with the sign that it is, it's already gone through, it's learned everything, it's experienced the whole sign, this Aquariusness that we've all been like really in it. A lot of people talked about how January felt like the longest month ever, and February is kind of like flying by a little bit. Maybe it'll start really picking up once we move into Pisces season. But yeah, so that anaretic degree is like, okay, gosh, can we just be over with this already? This is just I'm so over it. I'm so done with it. And then there's that energy of feeling like you're at a threshold, right? It's tense. Like you feel that sort of vibrational readiness to move on to the next sign. So a lot of times when planets are at the 29th degree, ready to move into the next sign, it can be really, it's like a breaking point sometimes for events, for things, for people, for ideas, for jobs, for relationships, whatever. It feels like very tense. So it may be kind of a wild week with like all the romantic stuff happening for Valentine's Day, but then the follow up of feeling like, I don't know, we need to do something, either get married or break up, that type of energy. Um, so yeah, like I said, breaking point threshold. We're going to be in this weird threshold, and Pluto is right there. Right? Pluto's finally gotten to 29 degrees. I mean, you feel like it's been that 26, 27, 28 degrees of Capricorn for years, right? It just feels like it's so long. It's been sitting there like putting pressure on those final degrees of Capricorn, and it's going into Aquarius this year. It's not going to stay for very long, but we're going to get a little preview of what Pluto and Aquarius really feels like. So yeah, having Pluto, the deep, dark, pressury crucible of transformation and all of those taboo things we don't like talking about, just putting pressure on that breaking point of the 29th degree of Capricorn is gonna feel, I think we're gonna really feel it all the way from now up until when it ingresses into Aquarius. So there may be just kind of like this like kind of bubbling tension, sort of churning behind things. Um, so if you see things like my partner keeps telling me we're going to war, oh my god, all of this stuff happening, and I'm like, that is such a um, Pluto at the 29th degree of Capricorn. It just feels like, urgent, right? Kind of like what's happening. Oh gosh, like could this huge catastrophic thing happen? That's Pluto at the 29th degree, the anaretic degree. The sun and the moon, they're going to be at those degrees as well this week. The moon, of course, goes through a sign every 2.5 days, so it's not as like a big deal for it to be at the 29th degree because it happens so quickly and so often. But it does feel a little dangerous sometimes. So just be careful this week. I want people to enjoy that lovely, beautiful fantasy, um, dreamy Venus conjunct Neptune this week. Really enjoy it, right? Venus in Pisces is the happiest it can be. It feels like a princess, like being put up on a pedestal kind of like energy. So really enjoy that. If you can focus on that type of energy this week, great. But just also be aware of all of this other stuff that's happening. So I want you to be cognizant and prepared and um, you know, appreciating the good things that happen, but also being aware that negative stuff can come up, especially when things are kind of on that verge of the 29th anaretic degree. Um, so hopefully I wrote down, you may be so la la land, you may be so like fuzzy and in la la land from this conjunction with Venus and Neptune that you may not even notice all of this anaretic degree stuff. So, you know, that could happen. You may not be, it may be very obvious. It may be like very like you feel that pressure happening, but you may just be in this other world, right? Because of Neptune. So um anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. If you have plans for Valentine's Day, great. If you don't, it's, I used to think it was a stupid holiday. I still don't think it's like whatever. It's supposed to be like this whatever huge deal when you're with somebody, but I don't think anyway. If you do celebrate, give yourself something to celebrate, give yourself some self-love, buy yourself flowers, buy yourself chocolates, whatever you want to do. Indulge in that, because that this opportunity for Venus and Neptune this week is really gonna sort of enhance the indulgence, of drinking maybe too much wine or eating more too much chocolate, like that type of energy. So if you can enjoy and partake something that you makes you feel good and very sensual or embodied. Venus loves everything that is about the five senses. So buy yourself something nice, like silky, or, um, you know, treat yourself to something beautiful. That's something you can do this week, and I hope that you get to enjoy it. And I hope that we live in interesting times, right? And things are just going to get weirder. As soon as that Pluto goes into Aquarius, like I feel like the weird is just gonna be on a whole new level. So we're all going to get through it together, and we have astrology to guide us. So I hope you have a wonderful week and be safe. And I will see you next week. Bye.